All right. Yeah, what's up? Oh, I'll tell you right now. Hold on. You would need. Do you need the meeting ID? Do you need the meeting ID? The meeting. Oh, you need my passcode. Hold on. Let me just give it to you. All right. Yeah. No, you're attending. So hit that. Are you in? Hold on. I'm getting that. Passcode 265182. All right, I tapped you in. All right. All right, you there?
Hey.
Hey. Okay. All right. Perfect. We got that little thing out of the way. Just give me 1 second. All right. Yeah, I'm going to be. Hold on. Do I want to. What do you think? Should I use the backdrop or should I go no face today?
What's the backdrop?
Outdoors.
Oh.
I'm at a public library.
Okay.
All right. So.
That's cool.
Okay. All right. So let's get started.
Sure.
All right, guys. Welcome back today. So I figured I would try something different for the shoot today, which is basically outdoors. So today we're gonna welcome a business coach to pick your brains. Today I have Viviana, who's led an interesting career and is now, if I remember correctly, you're a LinkedIn trainer or business coach. Which one? Or business strategist?
So I am a business coach and I emphasize in marketing using the LinkedIn platform.
All right, so we'll get to some of that business stuff later, but instead of doing 2 segments, I'll just do we'll go back and forth. So basically,
okay.
when did you graduate high school, if it's okay to ask?
So I don't remember because I never graduated high school. So I went from, I was in high school, but then I dropped out when I was actually 17 years old. I had dropped out.
So you got a GED, if I'm correct, right? General ed?
Yes. So I obtained my GED through the college that I was in. So there was a program that you would receive your college degree if you fulfilled X amount of classes, then you would get your GED. So that's how I started, or that's how I kind of finalized that part of my education.
Did you go to community college or did you go to one of the city universities?
I went to a community college.
So you started out there. Now, that leeways to this question. What was your dream career when you first started in college, or what did you see yourself doing?
So when I was in college, I just didn't have a clear kind of vision of what I wanted to be. I just know that I wanted to be different, that I know that I wanted to help people, wanted to explore more than what I was saying.
I think it's funny because if you really look at everyone who was born in the 80s, I think we all had that problem at first going to college where nobody necessarily thought they knew what they want to do, so you changed majors, which you could sort of afford to do. What you could afford to do that, at a young age if you didn't like one major change, because if you try to change industries as an adult, it's not as simple as changing a major.
Right. I mean, for school, I went to school originally for accounting, and then I lost interest in that. So I went into computer programming. So I had, kind of passion for technology. But then since then, I got into law enforcement. So I had a really like weird transition
That
career.
So that's another good question. What drew you to law enforcement when deciding to go to law enforcement when you ended up wanting to do technology first?
So I had wanted to do technology after law enforcement. So it was after, it was not before.
Were you originally thinking when you wanted to become a police officer that you would do what they called the 20 to 30 years from a young age and then transition to doing something else, which is traditionally what a lot of our boomer parents had wanted to do? Their ideas were some of the dropouts, like you mentioned, would typically go to law enforcement when our parents were growing up. And then, they would do their 20, 30 years young and then try to do something else with their life.
Right. That's correct. I mean, it was that was the time that, you needed in order for you to get a full pension. So,
Yeah, I
so a lot
mean,
of people were just kind of doing the whole 20 and out thing.
well, you could do 20 and out when our grandparents, were raising our parents. But I think that the government complicated that over the years by trying to extend pensions because they did the same thing with teachers. They made it so that if you came after us, if you transitioned to law enforcement or what was it, got into teaching at a later point than, older teachers, you would have to do a longer amount of time to become vested.
Yes, that is correct.
Which I don't know if I completely agreed with that type of those type of policy changes, but I'm not running the government now, am I? On a
Right.
state level, I don't think any of us are, because that was traditionally always seen as a career path for effectively somebody towards the end of their working years. A good example would be my county's executive who started out in the private sector but then transitioned to government, and now he's county executive at the late stages of his life.
Right.
So if I'm correct with the NYPD, did you have to have a certain grade on the civil service exam to be able to get called to the academy?
Yes, you did.
What was the score, if I remember correctly? Because I took 2 police exams and I didn't even pass them. But it was a good education for me in what law enforcement looks like on paper versus what it actually is today.
Yeah. I don't remember, but I know it was in the 80s. Could have been 85, 89, something like that.
So in 2016, when I took the Westchester County Police exam, the passing score was 95 to get called back. So it might have changed, that, from when you took that to when I tried that in the city of White Plains.
Yeah. It was
And I also,
in the high
yeah,
80s.
go ahead. Go ahead.
It was definitely in the high 80s. But again, it's been so long, I don't remember.
No, that's okay because, and then the other thing is, how long did you actually spend in the NYPD?
About 2.5 years.
I'm guessing you didn't like the job, did you?
No.
What was it about it that you didn't like?
I mean, there was a lot of things about it that I didn't like, a lot of politics, a lot of corruption, a lot of toxic behavior. There was a lot of that going on. So it was definitely not what I thought that it would be.
So, in other words, aside from the fact that that line of work was always probably going to be seen as toxic to begin with anyway, and it's not because of the pay grade, it's because of the fact that it's unfortunately an essential job. I guess you just figured, I don't think I can do 28 to however much more time with this. I want to do something else.
Right, right, exactly.
Now, here's a great question for you. Would you say getting educated in the law at the academy was at least a good base for other parts of your life to at least better understand law enforcement?
I mean, overall, it was an experience and it was a lesson, that I felt like I had to go through in my journey. So, um, it definitely taught me as far as, the laws can be bent and articulated in any kind of way, right? So it's just kind of like make the best man win, so to speak. So I'm not into politics. I've never been into politics. I don't understand politics. I don't want to understand politics, and how they, kind of rule their own thing. I just want to, focus. I mean, even though I should, I'm not saying that I want to be totally oblivious to what's going on in the world, but a lot of that stuff for me, because I have been exposed to it, it's deceiving, it's not what it is behind the scenes, at least
So
from my
I have two interesting takes on this. Okay, number one, because I used to be able to get away on the Facebook platform with doing political posts, but unfortunately, a lot of people said I complained too much. When I came over here to LinkedIn, I couldn't do what I did over there on Facebook with LinkedIn. So I have to frame certain things that I don't like about politics as what we would call public policy, or do public policy posts. Some people, depending on the age with LinkedIn, we've both noticed, can get away with like straight political posts and do, but it also depends on what industry it is. But I will say this, because I know you are a coach, and I think we'll probably get into this, but I notice career coaches, but they don't want to fess up or admit to this, do the same exact political posts just in a different way. Like when they're complaining, why don't businesses be transparent about what they're paying what they're paying in salary? Why can't we get the government to pass laws for salary transparency? And how do companies unfortunately beat this? We'll just give you a range.
right, right. So I was more on the um training and development side when it came to the onboarding process. So I didn't do a lot of HR, kind of like what they do, that they're into their policies and things like that. I was more on the leadership side.
So you were in HR. What roles did you perform in HR, and what industries in the private sector?
So most of my experience was in retail. So like retail furniture and things like that. A lot, and this was when I was younger. Um, and that, as far as like what I did as an adult, telecommunications, I did more of leadership, but a lot of the policies and all that from HR, that's I don't know anything about that. That's not in my realm.
Well, no, because I noticed a lot of career coaches, especially on the LinkedIn platform, most likely came from HR backgrounds.
So
Would
what
you
I
say
did
that's about
do,
accurate?
yeah. So what I do is when I shifted from or pivoted from what I was doing with the law enforcement and I wanted to start building a business, I was more focused on helping other people with getting their pursued roles. So that's kind of how I started on LinkedIn. So because I did more of leadership development, then I understood what other companies were looking for as far as a candidacy, what type of skill sets they were looking for, what type of, contributions they were looking for, so those are the kind of things that, I kind of did in that space. And I think that coming from that career, kind of like leadership aspect, there's a good opportunity here in LinkedIn for people in that space. So I think that's why they shift, because a lot of people know that there's business like-minded individuals on the platform.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. And then I would imagine because of the business coach part of it, and because you had been a career coach, if I'm sort of correct, you offer training to a lot of the you probably had price ranges, and I would guess that you trained a lot of these career coaches to do what they do, correct?
Train a lot of the career coaches. You
Yeah.
mean as far as like the business?
Well, as far as the business and the
You know what?
content.
1 second, because my alarm keeps going off. I
Okay.
don't know if you hear it, but it's all the way in the other room. So give me 1 second. Sorry.
Okay. No, it's fine.
Oh, sorry about that.
No, it's okay. So, did you develop trainings for a lot of these career coaches that I see on the platform itself, or did you personally business coach them with their models?
So the people that I coach, it's a variety of life coaches, career coaches, communication coaches, that are essentially using LinkedIn to market themselves, to promote, to showcase, what they can and cannot do. So I don't specifically work with career coaches, but when people come into the program, then yes, they are kind of, they come through a funnel. So I kind of funnel them in, and they go through an actionable steps and a plan of action that will help them with their goals. So I worked with people individually, and I work with people as a group. So right now I just work with people as a group, and I use my course to help them with, learning and developing the skills that they need to, you know, to be, good at their LinkedIn, prospecting and marketing and stuff like that.
And there are other platforms that I noticed, can be used aside from LinkedIn. LinkedIn isn't a bad platform. I think depending on how people produce content really shows something about them. Like, for example, I like the way that you've produced content over the last 2 years that I've viewed your stuff. Whereas I've noticed with a lot of younger coaches, they tend to, when they can't think of anything else, they resort to stupid memes. Not that I don't think memes are funny and all, but as a career coach, at least from what I'm looking at myself running a podcast, I'm like, memes can be distasteful at times, is what I've noticed. I feel like if you don't have anything else to either promote, or you're not sure if you're going to get someone, it's like the meme is a default. When I prefer to read people, I prefer to read text, if that makes some level of sense.
Well, I mean, a picture is worth 1,000 words, so you can, kind of take the meme how you see it, how you read it, how you feel it, so kind of put that into perspective.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. What companies, what possessed you to move from New York to Florida separately from the fact that everyone really leaves because of the cost of living? Were there other reasons that you and your family moved down south?
So I moved to Florida because there was a relocation happening in the company that I worked for at the time. So I worked for Verizon Wireless, and I was with them already for a few years, and they were relocating. So we had some options to relocate to either Florida, Tampa, Florida, North Carolina, or no, South Carolina and Texas. So I decided to come to Florida and move with the company and with my friends and start a new life.
What did they ever reveal what the reason was they moved to the part of the company that you were in, or I'm guessing they just chose to relocate for other reasons?
I think mainly to save money, you
Sounds
know.
about right. What kind of things did you learn at Verizon that applied to building your business?
Oh wow, so much, structure, showing up, you know, um, how to help other people, how to provide solutions, always be honest, honesty always gets you, you know, on the right track. So, I mean, I learned a lot from Verizon. Verizon was probably one of the best companies I've worked for.
How long had you stayed there for?
About
Before
5 years.
5 years. And then did you move on like law enforcement because you wanted a new challenge, or you were just kind of growing tired of it?
No, I was in law enforcement and then I started my telecommunications. Then I started working with Verizon.
Oh, okay. So you transitioned about two different times, sort of similar to me. When I left retail in 2020, it sort of went like this. I had already had a second job at the school district over here in Hastings, over here next to Dobbs Ferry in Hastings. So there wasn't, there wasn't the need for to worry as much, although it took a few months before the pandemic benefits got approved. But then when I started collecting it, relieved a lot of stress. I was in senior care very shortly. And then by 2021, that's when, as I was building presence on LinkedIn, that ended up into healthcare. Now, honestly, I with this podcast, there's a couple things I want to be doing with this podcast, but in all reality, aside from running my own media company, I want to use it to seek other opportunities within working for someone partly as well. Kind of use, like you said, coaching is a marketing tool. So for me, the podcast is a marketing tool for myself.
Right.
Well, because I think we've interacted about this before and agreed on something. 1 to 2
Right.
streams
So,
of income.
what's the goal of the podcast?
Goal of the
Bring
podcast is very simple. I'm using this as personalized storytelling to eventually leeway to consulting businesses on how to work with people on the spectrum, especially because for myself, and it's interesting that you asked that question, I haven't gotten to a point where I'm fulfilled in my life yet from all the work that I've done. And it's been for people on the spectrum. Here's a good one for you. I don't think it's appropriate to be just saying this one could work retail or this one could work customer service, but this one can work in tech, for example, and get a better salary out of it. I don't see that a lot of people take into account somebody on the autistic spectrum's interests. Everyone has a different interest and different desire. Some may be okay with the retail or the customer service oriented job if he's living with someone, or he's eligible for some type of a government program. Or then you get situations like myself, where on the LinkedIn platform I'm finding other people in similar situations where some of us would like to launch keynote speaking careers, or in my case, what I want to do through this podcast is sell courses and trainings, just like just like you're selling a course yourself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That this took me about us from doing the podcast to now it took me about a year to finally figure out I wanted to do courses and trainings, for businesses and private individuals and parents as well on not just sign recognition, but how to support, their child on the spectrum, or for businesses to support their workforce.
Okay.
And I see attaching all of these as links to my podcast, and and offering a consulting service through it is very beneficial, because then I could bill these companies, set, a consultant's rate.
Right.
So in a way, I see myself with this podcast and starting, to leeway to media. I see it as a way to also to do consultation services, which is what I think a lot of younger people really sort of want to be doing this day, but not everyone can be a consultant or should be a consultant. Especially with the amount of nights in entrepreneurship, sometimes I can't even fall asleep.
Wow.
I'm suffering from that sometimes. Now, from Verizon, did learning things through Verizon help you effectively market better on the LinkedIn platform?
No, I learned a lot on my own, and I had my own business coach.
Okay. So a lot of coaches who are getting their start sort of need that personalized coach support, correct? So is that what you do to an extent?
Yeah, and I develop it and I create it in a way where, it's self-paced and they are, kind of accountable with their own actions, but I'm also there to support them. I do lessons and things like that. But I did the one-on-one coaching. I coached one-on-one. I've been coached one-on-one. I've had life coaches. I've worked with marketing coaches. I worked with business coaches. I worked with, burnout coaches. So I've done a lot of work on myself. So then this way I can help other people not just work on their business, but work on themselves, because if you're not doing good, your business is not going to do good.
Who were some of the life coaches that you would say that you took courses from over the years that helped in getting to where you are today? I think on one post 2 years ago, I recall you saying you liked Tony Robbins. Did you take his course?
I didn't. I mean, I listened to Tony Robbins since I was very young. So a lot of his stuff, I've, read it, I've practiced it, I had at the time CD, tapes, CDs, so I used to listen to a lot of his teachings, and I would practice a lot of the things that he taught. So yeah, so I would say Tony Robbins would be kind of like one of my biggest
influences. Who else besides Tony Robbins did you listen to? And actually, it's funny because you mentioned tapes and CDs. Look how far technology has come. Because I was just having this conversation with two friends recently. You wanted to do a podcast when I think respectively oldest of millennials and Gen X were growing up. We don't have something available. We didn't have video conferencing software. So imagine how many records for a podcast you can do now versus 20 years ago, where ideally, if I'm going to do 10 a year, it's really going to be more like 2, just because of the fact that you had to have, and even look how far the phone has come. It was a lot harder in the 2000s, I would say, to do something like this, where you probably spent more time developing content, more time writing it. Then you had to have the camera to record. Then you had to cut and edit. And now look how digital everything is.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you still gotta do your edits and stuff, but it's a lot easier than what it was before.
Well, when I was learning film editing back in the 2000s, yes, I would say today it's a lot easier and a little more low cost in some areas to be buying these licenses, or at least there's the option to pay the license monthly or pay the license once for the year. I mean, monthly, even funnier, because I you lived in this area. Cablevision, I don't I don't have an I only have the Optimum internet subscription. I couldn't fathom I couldn't fathom having a cable subscription now. Whereas when you have, what is it? Netflix, I can just pay for that monthly and very cheaply too. And when we were growing
Yeah,
up,
I mean, you're not gonna see the same things, that you would on a cable TV, on a broadcast, on a network. So then you have to, see what's important for you as far as, channel wise, right? Because Netflix and all that stuff, those are movies and stuff like that. They're not in the present moment, you know. So you want to
no,
learn.
cable broadcasting is completely still outdated on some levels with network TV. That's why I think the idea for Netflix, and Netflix even started out as CDs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, when we were growing up, remember Blockbuster, Be Kind, Rewind. We went
Yeah.
from Be Kind, Rewind with cassette tapes to DVD to Laserdisc to now everything $15.99 a month for movies.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
really progressive in terms of growth.
Right. Right. I agree. I
So
agree.
when you did what did you find more effective, one-on-one coaching or group coaching, before you went to basically a course?
So I found that one-on-one coaching is definitely more effective.
So are prices different for a group cohort versus one-on-one when it
Correct.
comes to business coaching?
Yeah, because one-on-one, you're not just actually, you know, having one-on-one sessions with this person, right? But you also have to work for them in the back end, while they're trying to figure out the pieces. You have to kind of like do homework for them, give them stuff to do, keep them accountable. So those things take, time aside from your hourly or 45-minute session on a weekly basis. And that's why a lot of people, they're like, well, they don't pay for it because they can't afford it. It's expensive. But if you do the work, then you will get the return on investment, as quickly as you want it to be, really.
So let me ask you an interesting question. I thought this one was interesting. Do you feel like career coaches are trying to charge what you do or business coaches do as a trainer? Do you believe those prices are fair per individual client, even though it's up to them? If you don't mind me asking, because business coach and career coach are two completely different things. One is what you do, as I may have said this on your post, or maybe I didn't. I don't remember if I did, but when you pay a career coach, you pay a career coach to help you find a job at each juncture, depending on what you want to do with your life. But when you pay a business coach, I feel like the business coach teaches you more to think for yourself and what you want to do with your life outside of a job. I know that's a few loaded questions, but since it looks like you did both, you could probably answer.
So as far as like pricing, your program, essentially you price it, based on what work you put in. I've overpriced for programs that I felt that I didn't get enough value. And I've purchased programs where I'm like, wow, I got a lot of value, So um it's like if you want to upgrade your prices, you got to upgrade your systems. You got to upgrade the back end of your systems. You got to upgrade your, the material, you got to upgrade, you know, your skill set, you know, you got to learn how to talk to people differently. Like it's a whole different, you know, you gotta do more and be more if you want to have that as a price point. So I
I
don't the other question was.
the other question was, when, let's say I decided to do one of your programs, before we would even discuss price, or I decided I wanted to go to a career coach, the question would be, because they do two different things, do you believe, I'll frame this question differently. Who do you feel offers more value? A business coach who teaches a client to eventually start wanting to do more for yourself, or a career coach who you're periodically going to end up paying for transitioning from an entry level to a mid level to a junior senior level, a senior level to an executive level? You see the problem? You're paying the career coach each time, whereas I feel with the business coach, at least the business coach is giving you value to eventually start, can I take my skills that I learned from a job and now build a business with it?
So I would say that it depends on your goals. If you want, because not everybody wants to have their own business. Some people want a different type of structure and they want to level up in a different type of way. And that's okay. Because regardless of you want to be an entrepreneur or you want to be a CEO of a company, you still have to have the same kind of attributes as, you know, a high performance, you know, a high achiever, you know, like you can't, there's certain characteristics that you just, you know, and habits that you create to give you that success, you know. So some people are okay with, you know, leveling up in a career and, you know, making 100,000, 150, whatever it is, because sky's the limit, depending. I mean, your next focus after that would be, you know, you president or you building a company, right? So, and then, you know, when you're entrepreneur, yeah, you're kind of like starting from scratch, but you don't really have a lot of hands-on to support you. You kind of have to like support yourself and then, you know, start building those blocks, you know? So it just depends on your goals and, you know, what you have to offer in the world.
So, and that's the other thing, because that brings into the quest, that brings to the, not, I'm not going to circle back. I'm going to jump on a point that you made. It's what the client would want. The thing is, I was just reading an article about 2 weeks ago that I showed my mom and Justin from Susie Welch, who was the wife of the deceased, what's his name, from GE. Anyway, she was saying, if you want to get promoted, it's better to be on site with your company, because that's when the promotions happen. But as I think they don't want to admit, most people, you know, most young people now are deciding, I would probably say it's 50-50. 50% are leaning to entrepreneurship like myself, because we're realizing, I don't want to spend at 38 the next 20 years going back to school, spending more money to get a credential scanned by human resources and maybe get an interview. Whereas if I start my own business and eventually, you know, separate from billing the consultants, this is the quickest way to either running my own company, or at very minimum, maybe taking this while building skills and trying to bill myself as an executive. There's two different ways that this kind of thing for me could go right now, but it puts me in a more positive light that human resource systems, you know, aren't always going to be able to see, because I've built other skills over the years that no one is really going to be able to see on paper. Look at the podcast, for example. The podcast took 2 of my degrees, a lot of select classes, which was basis in marketing, and it puts more to use. With me as a host, I spend a lot of day, I would say before every time I do the records with you or any other guest, I've spent a lot of time consuming content on YouTube. I watch Netflix so I can figure, and then I consume content on LinkedIn, and this has all added to what I've been able to do with this.
So is your question, are you asking if it's you should start a business after 38 or you should pursue a different career? What would be the most time effective thing for you, or is that where you're?
Yeah, I would say, what do you think is the most time effective thing to me? Because I want a second income or third income instead of one large income. Because one large income is going to take so long to acquire.
So, I mean, ideally, yeah, you want to build multiple streams of income, but again, that's going to go back to what are your goals? Because you can build a business after 38, yeah, absolutely, and then you can grow from there. But if you wanted to start a new career after 38, you still have the opportunity to do that. And if you did, let's say, do that, you can meet more people with more resources that will be able to help you with probably accelerating that growth, where maybe you won't accelerate it the same way when you're starting your own business. Again, it depends on your lifestyle, your structure. Some people need structure and they will not do their own business. They're very content with working for a corporate. So it's all, and some people are like, no, I want to travel, I want financial freedom, I want to do this, I want to do that, so it just depends on your overall goals and what you want to feed it. So
My goals, two things that you just mentioned there, those are two things that I want. Traveling, since I haven't gotten to do a lot of that, while everybody else got to do that, and freedom, because at least with freedom, I could focus more on this project that I'm doing right now. If I had freedom, I would have more time to prospect, and I would have more time for LinkedIn. I'd be able to build a legitimate, good website. I'd be able to, take the existing content that I have, edit it, market it better, and sell services and products better. That's ideally what this experience, building on a part-time basis while being employed for someone has taught me. It's taught me that I can succeed and do much better with something like this, which is a side project.
Right. I mean, and then, as you continue working on it, you continue perfecting your craft, and you continue, seeing what other skill sets you need to contribute to the growth of your podcast channel.
So as far as what we call branding or presence, from when we started interacting to what you see now, would you say that somebody like me has a stronger brand presence now after 2 years, or it's still a work in progress? Because I see it as a work in progress.
I mean, we work in progress every day. So we're a work in progress every day. I mean, we all have room, yeah, for opportunities, progress. I think for me, I would say this probably on behalf of a lot of people, that you show up, people know who you are, what you're committed to, what your passions are, and they know about this podcast. I've seen a few people, including Yanni, come to your podcast, so that's pretty cool.
Which name did you just mention?
Yanni, you know who Yanni, Coach Yanni?
Oh, remind me which coach she is.
At least I think so. You know what? I could be wrong. I have to.
No, she's the financial
guy.
one. Oh, I've had in total on this podcast, I've had at least 20 people. I've had a lot. I'd have to go back and look, but the last two guests that I just had were himself a consultant and former NYPD officer after 15 years. Then I had Hattie Mendez. Before that, all of last year,
No, go ahead. I know you have somebody that I knew. I wonder, I don't know, maybe it wasn't him. I don't know.
maybe it wasn't him because you probably know a few people, but I've had up to 20 people throughout the last 2 years
Okay.
on this. And I took a few breaks between last year and this year. And so I'm back to being a little more consistent with it because like you, I'm developing system right now. One of the systems that I put into place this year was a 6 month schedule for shooting, a few months off for content development, and then skills development. So I'm working at like a 4-quarter a year system. 2 quarters will be devoted to content making, one will be for editing, and then video series. And I am going to bring back Opinionated Collective next year, so we're going to probably be debating some business topics. So I'll let you know when those scheduled recordings are. Okay.
Yeah, let me know. Invite me next time for sure.
Okay. So thank you for coming by today and telling us your story. And I'm going to close out today on this. It was a fun time having you. All right.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much for having me.
Right.
I know I've been asking you for months, but now we made it happen. So hopefully we get to continue that momentum.
Yeah, we will. All right. Have a good day.
Bye.
All right. Bye.